Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlicker shills, desolate serfs, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks, archaeologists. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome. Today I want to talk about the systematic destruction of historic and religious sites in the Middle East by Israel. This is a topic I've thought about for a long time because in general, it doesn't seem like the elites really are concerned about World Heritage sites or the heritage that justly belongs to the world and all its citizens. And so all these historical sites all over the world are part of the human legacy and in some ways belong to all of humanity. And I started thinking about this, thinking about certain events like apparently the massive global library in Alexandria was burned down by by an invading sultan. And so no concern at all for this magnificent center of learning that had most of the scriptures and books available all over the world were stored in Alexandria. Had no problem burning that down. Or looking at World War I and World War II, particularly World War II, and large European cities with great heritages like Berlin and Dresden were just completely decimated. And so all that history and all these monuments are lost. And we see a lot of examples of this done for military reasons, done for political reasons, and done for religious reasons. And there's a lot of players involved. Of course, we remember the destruction of Palmyra in Syria during the Syrian civil war, and the great Buddhas of Banyan in Afghan that were destroyed by the Taliban. And then all kinds of wonderful historic sites, Sana'a city in Yemen, the entire city of Basra in Syria, the great mosque of Aleppo. All of Aleppo is completely destroyed. So any great monuments or historical sites there are completely obliterated. And so the citadel of Aleppo was destroyed. The Aleppo Souk in Syria was destroyed. The city of Nimrod in Iraq was destroyed. The Khalid Mosque in Syria was destroyed. Jonah's tomb was in Iraq was destroyed by ISIS. Um, we have Cyrene, Libya was destroyed during the war in Libya and the bombing there. A place that was built in 630 BC. The entire old Beirut, Lebanon, only 400 of 1,200 buildings are left. The great mosque in Mosul, Iraq, and of course during the Iraq War, or after the Iraq War, when the United States was going after ISIS, of course the entire ancient city of Mosul was completely destroyed. So there's a lot of guilty people involved in this practice, but it's still I just still marvel that this great world history, some of these places have survived for hundreds and thousands of years, and because of stupid human political and religious ideas and very destructive military tactics, a lot of this can be wiped away just so easily, and it's just such an incredible shame. I'm a big history buff and an archaeology buff, and it truly breaks my heart. But what we're seeing now, why I'm doing this video, is the entire village of Mayabib in South Lebanon. It was a shrine to the prophet Benjamin. It was 2,100 years old, and Israel just destroyed the entire thing. I'll post a video below of them planting explosives and basically destroying, blowing up the entire hilltop, including the shrine and this ancient village. And so this just complete destruction. And of course, with Israel, it's about wiping out not only Muslim heritage, but also just wiping out any trace of Palestinians and other Muslims. And a lot of times they appropriate it and rename them or co-opt them to become Jewish Israeli historical sites. A good example of that is the over 418 Palestinian villages that were destroyed during the Nakba in 1948, and even old cemeteries were decimated, and they went and renamed all of those villages and gave them Jewish names. And so part of it is not only wiping out the Palestinians, but wiping out all of their heritage. And we're seeing that in Gaza, but we're also seeing it in the West Bank. Um, 206 sites, historical sites in Gaza, including the entire Old City. 146 buildings were completely destroyed or mostly destroyed. The Great Omari Mosque, the Byzantine Church in Jabalia, the Shrine of Al-Qadir, a Byzantine Cemetery, a Greek Orthodox Church, the El Saka House, Syed El Hashim Mosque. A lot of these date back to Phoenician and Roman times, between 800 BC and 1400 AD. And so, and the mosque in Rafah has been almost completely destroyed. And then there's talk about taking down the Al-Aqsa Mosque in one of the most holy sites for Muslims in the West Bank and replacing it with the new Temple of Israel. And so the systematic destruction by Israel of these sites has a political agenda and a religious agenda, and it seems to me to be the most egregious because a lot of these sites end up being destroyed just by warfare. But the fact that Israel is very conscious of systematically destroying all these historical sites and then making them part of the Jewish heritage just shows once again how diabolical the Zionist government in Israel is, and the fact that they reclaim these heritages and continue to wipe out the Palestinian people, body and soul. And so I find that even more insidious than destruction by just pure war. And as Israel spreads its wings with plans of the Yinon plan for a greater Israel, we see more and more of this. And in fact, Israel now, of course, is occupying a large section of southern Lebanon, and they're busy destroying shrines and villages there as well, a lot of them dating back hundreds and sometimes thousands of years. In an entire village, as I mentioned, over 2,000 years old, was just destroyed with explosives. It wasn't even a battle zone. And the Roman ruins at Baalbek was a good example that have been partially, almost completely destroyed, and airstrikes on Tyre as well, one of the oldest continuously occupied villages in Lebanon, and entire neighborhoods in southern Beirut are currently being destroyed during this Israeli occupation. So anyway, it was bad enough when the elites didn't seem to care about the history and legacy of mankind all over the world, but now in the Middle East, we see the destruction of some of the oldest remnants of civilizations in the world, and are being destroyed just out of insane political and religious ideals. It just breaks my heart. Anyway, I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too.